I'm James McKinney, the director of Google Startup Grind here in Santa Clarita. We're excited about bringing entrepreneurs together. If you're watching this, you're watching one of our social channels, we want to see you at our next event. They're every month, always on a Tuesday. We want to bring the entrepreneurs, startups, founders, co-founders together.
Welcome tonight to Google Startup Grind Santa Clarita. Tonight, we have the privilege of having Matthew Arevalo join us. Matthew is the co-founder of Loot Crate, which was recognized in 2016 as the fastest growing company in the United States. His story is one that should inspire and challenge everyone in this room. So at this time, please join me in giving a Startup Grind welcome to Matthew Arevalo. Thank you very much. It is. It should be comfortable. I was hoping for the Game of Thrones iron chair, but we couldn't make that happen. So maybe next time. We are excited you're here, and I hope you felt that excitement. I hope you understood how thirsty we are and hungry we are to hear about your entrepreneurial journey. And so just thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So just in case to start off with, there may be some people in here that do not know what Loot Crate is. So can you just share what Loot Crate is?
Yeah, Loot Crate is a company that is passionate about helping to unite the world around fandom. So we are a subscription box service that has different types of categories based off the type of fan that you are. And we create not only exclusive and licensed products that you could deliver as a subscription every month, but we also provide a community that you can become a part of as part of that journey and partner with studios and game companies to help make that happen.
Awesome. So we're going to jump into Loot Crate in some granular detail later. But all entrepreneurs, they have an origin story, right? You know, and just like the most popular superheroes is an origin story. So what is your origin story? You know, what was your family upbringing? What did your parents do? What was your education? What is your origin story? Tell us about you.
My personal origin story probably isn't that interesting. You know, I was an only child. I tested out of high school pretty early because I'm part of what some people have called the Oregon Trail generation, which is not like a real actual thing, but it's hard to pin like millennial and stuff like that. But I was fortunate enough to be brought up in an environment where computers were not like this one computer that the whole class used. You know, there was computer rooms and everything. So I became enamored early on with tinkering with things and becoming, getting into technology, which then in turn turned into this gaming movement that was happening with, consoles at home and, people buying computers to play video games at home and everything. And that naturally led to just more and more of an interest in creating content. You know, I was like the editor of the newspaper at like my junior high and everything, not because I have a great, background in journalism or inspired by that when I was that young, but because I knew how to work the program on the computer. So I was like, I'm the editor-in-chief because like you guys no one else knows how to use this thing, so by default. And then that led to working for companies like Apple and Microsoft. I worked for a company called Trend Micro for a few years as an account manager. And then I became kind of tired of the corporate life and wanted to do some more work in the entertainment industry, which was helpful because I was a technology consultant, and so I was able to work with a lot of really great creators and was inspired by helping them have influence by providing them with the tools and the resources that they had. So I spent 3 years on Sunset Boulevard actually as the director of support of a repair department called Mac Hollywood. And for 3 years I learned what I didn't learn because I've never had like a food service job or retail or anything. I went from high school directly into professional services. I learned what it was like to put yourself in the shoes of a customer and the nuances of that, and that kind of led to wanting to do it again on my own. So I started a consulting company that then led as social in like 2006, 2007. my knowledge of technology gave me kind of a quick bootstrap or kind of catapult into being able to understand social. And then I started teaching companies how to utilize it to build brands and community. Then fast forward to a startup event, and that's kind of where I met Chris and kind of where the company came from.
So your venture within social, was your experience with social similar to that with your Oregon Trail upbringing, in that you knew social, you were understanding, you were an early adopter of social, and so people were hiring you at some point to understand it a bit, or?
Yeah, I mean, I never was like working on like my personal brand. It wasn't about like, I'm your tech guy, you know, and wanting to do that. I was just very interested in it, and because I came from the world of BBSs and IRC and, you know, like being able to like create community and connections with people without even having like, you know, there was just text. And yeah, so I was one of the first million on a lot of the early platforms like Twitter and everything, and then you know, just learned how to use that medium and teach that medium to companies so they can learn how to kind of build their brand and grow community.
So was your prior to Loot Crate, was there just one venture and that was that consulting company, or was there multiple as well?
This would be definitely my first entry into the world of startups and entrepreneurship. Like, I didn't think about venture capital or convertible debt or, you know, all these different things that you have to think about, or that a lot of people think about, you know, in this world. Even when I was doing technology stuff and I was in LA working with studios, like, the idea of startups is just kind of like just a thing, you know, small companies that are, you know, might make it big, but I didn't know the environment around it. And then that's why when I was consulting, I decided to work out of a co-working space in Santa Monica to be able to surround myself with other entrepreneurs, designers, engineers, programmers, because I became enamored with, is there a way that I can help these startups who realize that social and digital communities were going to be a big part of how they were going to get the message out there? Could I help them? And is this a place, I mean, it was somewhat financially driven, right? This is a place I could find clients, but you know, just like you said, I went into it wanting to make friends and wanting to be additive to the community, and then just figure the business would come from it. And then from being at that space, that's where I went to my first Startup Week in LA event, which was the hackathon that launched Loot Crate.
That's awesome. So a couple things that just to make this real for us here in the Santa Clarita area. He mentioned co-working space as a place to just make friends, meet people, and also give back to entrepreneurial spirit. I want a little shout out to Steamworks Center, our local co-working space. A little shout out there. So make sure you connect with them for co-working space. So let's talk about that startup weekend. Because I think there's a lot of misnomers around a startup weekend. I think a lot of people avoid startup weekends. They have to be a developer to go to a startup weekend. You know, what was your mindset going into what drove you there? Like, not vehicle, but actually, what was your motivation to get there? Uber drove you there. What was your motivation to get there?
2012 Uber.
That is amazing. So, what was that mindset going in? What were you hoping for? And let's walk through that weekend, because like you said, that was the beginning of Loot Crate. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was working out of there daily in Santa Monica just because it put me in a new hub, you know, the Silicon Beach and everything. And I just, you know, I'd done hackathons in the past at other companies I'd been at, to, you know, on a more technical, but I'd never been to a startup hackathon. And so I figured I'd go into it, I'd be like, you know, there's a lot that I'm not good at. You know, I'm not a designer, I'm not a programmer or a developer, but I think I have a skill set that might be able to match with, you know, other entrepreneurs at this event. And yeah, you know, as the event occurred, which was a 54-hour event, and basically, in a nutshell, you meet other people. The idea is to only really kind of have a concept, not come there with like, I'm trying to get my company I've been working on off the ground. You know, it's supposed to be for new, fresh ideas. And the idea is in 54 hours, find a group of people, work on it nonstop. If you want to go home and sleep, you can go home and sleep. But if you want to work all night, you can do it. And on Sunday, present to a group of judges, which were VCs in the area. And first place got like a trip to Dubai, I think, to talk to other VCs there. Second place got a set of steak knives. And seriously, I mean, it was a little cliche at the time, I guess, but And they were really bad steak knives. They looked like the kind of steak knives you'd get at like a dollar store. So they really wanted to make sure it was like nothing.
They spent all that money on the pie.
Yeah. And then the third place was nothing. And I think officially I know I'm getting ahead of myself, so we'll go back, but we officially got like fourth place, being like, it was not something the judges felt, because subscription boxes had existed at the time. Definitely not in this sense, but it's hard in a 3-minute pitch to judges to really express there's actually a video somewhere on YouTube, or it might have been taken at the wrong angle by a woman who was in the audience, and you have to tilt your head to watch it. But it's like me coming up after Chris and I were giving the pitch, or during the pitch, and he was just talking about this business stuff and everything, and I kind of grabbed the microphone, I'm like, and community too, and we're gonna help people, I had to try and add a little bit onto it. But yeah, that's where I met Chris, who's our CEO and my co-founder. And I had never met him before, never knew anything about him. It'd be like meeting anybody in this audience here, and for the first time. But his idea that he came with was interesting, which was Comic-Con in a box. How can we get cool stuff to people? And through that 54 hours, it was because his brother, who's now a YouTube personality, and was a gamer and everything, and Chris's dad is the CFO of Qualcomm, and Chris had some entrepreneurial endeavors he'd been working on before. But because of his brother, gaming and everything, and seeing the world of superheroes and everything changing, he was like, oh, why don't we do it? A friend had a subscription box company of his, an alumni friend. And when he pitched that, in my mind, which is not to discredit him at all and his original concept, but I had been going to Comic-Con for years, right? It's a pilgrimage, it's a journey. I thought, oh, Comic-Con in a box. I didn't immediately think of the stuff you'd get there. I thought about the experience and the community and the excitement that you get. It's a ritual. It's something where you get access to amazing things. Maybe you see friends that you don't see. You consider them friends, but you only see them once a year. So when I sat down with him to build the concept of the company, he did the things that a CEO would do. He sat down with the designers and worked with them and everything, and then I helped develop the pricing and some of the stuff on the website and everything, and it kind of went from there. And within the first weekend, we already had people signed up, and that didn't help with the judges apparently, which is weird because we were like, we actually have people who've given us money. We didn't exist 2 days ago, and we have a checking account. We have Chris's checking account. It has an extra $5,000 in it right now because people bought in on what we were doing. And so yeah, during that time, I got the word out via social. We're a company who had a Facebook post the day the company started, and it was very authentic and transparent. People kind of joined the journey from the very beginning there.
So I have to ask, of those first three, who are you aware of where their status is? Are they in business?
So, well, there's a photo of us in the first that I took. I asked somebody to take, and it's us, that typical behind the laptop shot, with the website up and everything. It's here we are, day one. Someday this will be, something we'll reflect back on. And now I look at it, it's no, it's just Chris and I now. They didn't, there's just people who, well, to be fair, that some of them, had jobs already. Some of them were, and there wasn't really a lot at that time to get a sense of whether this would be a success or not, other than we've convinced some people just based off of a website without ever shipping a product or anybody endorsing it or anybody even experiencing it. Something about our messaging and our positioning and the passion we had, or something really clicked. We then met right after, and what are we going to do? We have these credit cards, and Chris was like, "Well, we should do the do the typical things a startup does and everything." And I was like, we have no time. We have to ship to these people in 30 days. We've taken their credit card. Imagine how weird it would be to cancel your card. This was just a hackathon thing, and so we made it happen. And we just Chris and I just kind of separated duties and just did the grind that it took to be able to find products, find boxes to put them in, and just kind of really scrappily put it together on folding tables and in a garage.
Oh my God, I love that. So I really that just speaks to my soul. And a couple things that, again, making it real here in Santa Clarita Valley. Startup weekend, Loot Crate, 5 years old, 600,000 plus subscribers.
600,000. We ship currently to 600,000 plus subscribers in 34 countries around the world, and that means some of them are monthly, some of them are every other month and quarterly. But those are the amount of paying subscribers we have, and it's across 25 4 product lines currently.
And it started at a Startup Grind weekend.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a startup weekend.
Startup.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. Again, making it real. Eric, Art, little shout out to you and your Startup Grind organization, Startup Weekend organization. We have one here in the Valley. We have one here in Santa Clarita. Don't limit yourself thinking that you don't have anything to offer these startup weekends. Go to it, learn from it, see what's happening. Make sure you connect with Eric on that. So let's talk about that first 30 days, right? So you had revenue within 48 hours, which is just awesome. I love that. I love that you had judges that said, I don't get it. Because, anyone who's ever pitched, you believe in your product so far, you could have revenue. And they're like, I don't get it.
And to be fair, it wasn't the sexiest of ideas. In order to wrap your head around it, it was like, okay, so you guys are putting geeky kind of game stuff in a box, just like, beauty boxes and stuff. And like in their minds, subscription boxes were, a thing. Yep. That you get half a bar of soap or, like a neckerchief or something like, like a fashion or beauty box or eco-friendly box or something. The idea of licensed, exclusive, stuff in there it was hard to express. So I don't blame any of those. I don't blame any of those original people on that.
Yep.
On that.
But again, that's part of that journey, that rejection, and you continue to get back on the horse because you believe in it. So let's talk about those activities that follow Startup Weekend into the first shipment. Because now, like you said, you wanted to honor those shipments. So what did those first 30 days look like?
Well, I was really nervous because, I kind of stumbled through it. I'm sorry. Like my first endeavors into being a consultant and as working. But I called in like every favor I had back there. I was like, I don't have a big influence on social. I have very little following as a personal, but I have a lot of influence with people who have larger followings. And so during those first few days, it was like, I can't, like, I don't want to be like, oh, there's that guy who had this idea and so bought me in, and I tweeted it out for him and tried to get the message out there, and then it sucked, So there was some nervousness, and there was all these like kind of very kind of typical cliche things of like, eating pizza while we are like looking at other websites and be like, how can we differentiate ourselves and everything. But for me, it was a lot about the social aspects. I was posting every day on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, letting those early people know that, you are just as much part of this company as we are. I was thanking people by first name and last initial as they signed up, because it was like every few hours, we'd get like a group of people who would sign up, and then every few minutes and everything got sooner. And I was focusing on how can we make sure that the infrastructure, these first people who took a chance on us, they're so precious and so valuable. Like, how can we make sure that they feel that what we ultimately give them is of value? And to be fair, the first box that we had, it was a regular white cardboard box. Chris had gone and got a rubber stamp with our logo on it that we just kind of like created really quickly. And we were hand stamping the boxes and folding them ourselves and everything, and putting little crinkly cut, packing like gift box stuff in there. And then we were putting the marquee item, I think, was a bottle of cologne, which is a terrible idea because like we have no idea what like the demographics are. Like we had no data, we had no anything about it, but Chris knew a guy who had a deal on like Avengers cologne, and so you got like a bottle of Thor cologne or Iron Man cologne or something, and then you got 2 packs of energy gum. One of them being Jolt, because it was like, oh yeah, like Jolt gum, like that's a gaming thing. I didn't do a lot of the curation on the early box, by the way. I was focusing on some other stuff, but and then a pack of Pone gum, which was another like gum made for gamers. And then I think it was a $20 gift card to Gentle Giant, which was a website that sold stuff that starts at like $100, and so like that's rough. So I honestly believe that people were just as invested and felt a value in the story. And I hope that doesn't come across as too conceited or anything, but we were really trying to be as transparent and authentic with our messaging, and not because that's a marketing gimmick. It was just that's what we felt. That's who we were. We were building the service, and I was particularly promoting it and trying to get the tone and everything of someone like myself. And so I think that those first few boxes, people were, they got stuff that they felt was of value, but they were watching as their feedback and their social engagement actually had an impact on the business. And to this day, with almost 300 employees and a machine learning and data science division and a consumer insights and research group internally and all these amazing things that we do to measure the customer journey and experience and everything, it still is all based on those early original foundations. And it's a long answer to what you do in the first 30 days. But basically all of that stuff was focused on making sure that, are we a curator, are we a friend, are we this and that, and just really modifying it and letting people know that like this is a service that is made for you. And I think people really caught on that the way we were doing it wasn't this big company trying to just like squeak some dollars out of some geeks who want to buy cool stuff, that it really felt like we were creating a community as well.
But I'm curious, before we get to the data science side of this, do you feel that level of community engagement, that transparency, that connectedness that you have with all of your looters, do you feel like that is singular only to you because of the fandom world you play in, or do you think that is something that brands and any industry should be looking to?
I mean, any industry should be trying to create, and I had this conversation earlier today with somebody where it was, the way that people, and I'm not going to say anything very inspirational here, I'm just going to let you know how it is.
No, I want an Oprah moment.
All right, I'm going to drop some knowledge on you. If there's one thing you get, no, I mean, I'm not that guy. So I'm not thinking this is going to be mind blowing or anything, but the way that people decide the products they're going to use and the services they're going to be a part of and things like that has changed dramatically, not only in the past 5 years, 10 years, but even in the past year. And so I had that knowledge because of working with brands and seeing that evolution from people just like, we have a Twitter account because that's what companies do, to how can we use it to really drive business results and everything, and try to infuse that into the company. So it's not singular to us. I think the benefit we have is now that we're the official subscription box of like Star Trek, WWE, Minecraft, meaning we don't just include their products in the box, like we are trusted by these very large, decades-old brands to run their fan subscription services and create product from scratch for those services and design experiences for them, that every time we did a new product launch and those fans came in and they were like, oh wow, this isn't just Loot Crate for Star Trek fans, like they built a service for Trekkers and Trekkies. There's a difference. We built it for them, and like the terminology and the phrasing and the images and everything is built for them, that we were able to build on that authenticity, right? We did not have to say, we are the most authentic and trusted brand for fans ever. We just proved it by continuing to implement and focusing on the customer experience, and then the money came. If we want to talk a little bit about that, beyond that first 30 days, in the first 3 years of the company, with a co-founder I've never met before, with no business plan or any kind of investment, we generated $100 million in sales. And that is awesome. And to me, I'm proud of it because when asked by some of our community, what's it feel like, to be this company? I turn it around on them. I go, are you one of our subscribers, or have you ever been? It's like, yeah, I've been subscribed for 3 years. I'm like, how does it feel for you? This is your service. All we are is a conduit for fans' wants and needs to the brands that they love. So we're not here to we don't create anything that we feel is going to be something that is going to sell well. We, through everything as simple as surveys to things as complicated as, designed in-house algorithms around how fans navigate the entertainment kind of landscape, and some really crazy stuff we're working on. All of it is made around the experience. And that first 3 years, Chris and I just focused, and the team, entirely on how can we make this a really amazing experience and a community that people want to be a part of. So we can turn people from just customers into looters, and from a transactional experience to one that feels experiential. And that started off in those first 3 years. I mean, we did everything from convert a 40-foot school bus with no air conditioning and only goes 60 miles an hour, and drove it to like trade show, fan expos and shows all the way up to Seattle and Austin and everything, and tweeted along the way and showed the experience. And when we got there, built booths using like zip ties and cardboard and like anything we could do. So now we have these like 2-story booths at Comic-Con, professionally designed and everything. But back then it was just like, we're here, here's our shingle, we're here for you. And like, how can we do better? I think that's been a really big benefit. And Deloitte is one of the sponsors here. We focus a lot on the technology as well. In addition to being Inc. magazine's #1 fastest growing private company in America, we were Deloitte's #1 tech company in America as well. And I think a lot of people, when they think about Loot Crate, when they hear about us, subscription box and everything, the tech company, but our CTO comes from TrueCar. We have 38 engineers, amazing men and women who are analysts and doing front end and back end design and really complex machine learning and interactive elements and everything. And you sometimes don't see all of that depending on how you engage with our brand, but it's all there and it's continuing to grow.
That's fantastic, man. What great insight into how transparent you are as a brand. And as you were talking about Star Trek in particular, and I'm totally gonna blow here. Trekker, sorry.
Depends on which air, when you came into Star Trek. But you have to be very, people are sensitive about
I understand.
Trust me.
I was raised on it. So, but at any rate, is that the value prop you bring into these brands? Like you listed off a few of the brands you deal with. Is that, because you're right, I mean, they have the fans, but they don't always have the resources for that type of brand, that type of fan connectedness. Is that your value position with them? And obviously there's a financial side to where royalties, whatever, but is that your main value position? Is that we will connect them in a way never before?
Let's talk about the royalties. We're the official subscription box for Halo, which is, a giant franchise from Microsoft. We're a rounding error to Microsoft. The 20,000 paying subscribers we have of that service is, it's really nothing from a financial perspective to that company, but what they gain from knowledge and information about how those fans interact with it is incredibly powerful to them. So Star Trek we just launched, so I don't want to get too much into it, but, and especially if you don't have to know anything about Halo for what the next thing I'm going to say is, but just know that it's a very popular franchise. It's not Halo stuff in a box. And Microsoft was looking at what Loot Crate had been doing and was thinking about doing a subscription service on their own for Halo. And what we did is we went up there and pitched them and everything. We created an experience for those fans that goes beyond just the physical items. So you join a fire team called Fire Team Apollo. So you're part of this like new community within the world of Halo. And we worked with the game designers and the writers and the people these two amazing women who were responsible for a lot of the lore of Halo, and we became part of the world and the expansion of it. And so when we send a box of Halo stuff every other month to a Halo fan, they're not just getting the Master Chief figure and like stuff they find at like a toy store or something. They're getting apparel that has hits on it that have factions in the game, but also their Fire Team Apollo logo, so they feel they're part of that special unit. We tie into your Xbox Live account, so in the game you have a special logo next to you that shows that you are a member of Fire Team Apollo. And then we even include some paper, like documentation stuff in there that is conversations between characters or AI computers in the game and stuff like that have never been revealed before. So you're getting lore that you've never gotten before. And we take that same approach to Firefly and Star Trek, and we run the Wizarding World of Harry Potter crate, we run a WWE subscription, all of those partner crates, we have that same care. We're not just working with their licensed partners to put their stuff in a box and ship it out as curators and for a deal. We're developing items that elicit an emotional response and are fostering that really good engagement around their fans. And then obviously there's the tech side, right? There's the data we get from how those people interact with the items that they can use for any number of things to help them sell product or just to learn more about who their fans are.
So we've talked about the products a little bit, but my understanding at this point, Loot Crate is the box subscription is purely the model.
Yes.
It's not the business.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we talk about the idea of fan commerce. Is that right now, subscription boxes, I mean, make no mistake, like that is what, that recurring revenue is what generates the millions upon millions of dollars a week, and like that's what we focus on when it comes to the business side of it. But we are doing things like E3 and Comic-Con, putting on events, working with partners that are within the space, creating original video content, everything from this show called Wake and Bake, which was Kevin Smith and Andy McElfresh, who's a trained chef, in my kitchen, which is thankfully recently remodeled. And Kevin Smith is there in my kitchen, and we're doing a show called Wake and Bake, all about like items that you might be able to make in the morning if you just happen to be not, in the best, most an interesting frame of mind, So, but it was definitely not.
Things are a little hazy.
Yeah, it wasn't. Look, we didn't go too far. We weren't like, oh man, like just get baked and eat this or anything. No, it was fun. But anyways, we created that content, and what were they using? Well, we have a Marvel subscription that's more of a lifestyle subscription, and at one point we focused on like the kitchen and stuff, and so we had like a Black Panther apron. We had these beautiful plates that were designed of different characters from the Marvel universe and everything, and so we were able to do that kind of brand integration into it, but we weren't like buy this, buy now and everything. It was just more about creating content for our fans and for the community and getting the word out there. So I run what's called Loot Crate Studios, which produces a theme video every month. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can see every month it's like a love letter to our community. It's like we take the theme that is from our main core subscription of Loot Crate, and we do a scripted or fully fleshed out production. Score, director, DP, special effects, VFX, everything, and that kind of is a beacon that everybody kind of surrounds himself with. And then every month that theme has its own style guide and image and logo and everything else to make it feel completely unique. So even the boxes themselves, which is kind of interesting, the boxes are bespoke. We don't like figure out what to put in the box based off of whatever we bought a bunch of boxes of, right? We design the boxes around the items that we decide to put in there, and the boxes themselves become part of the experience. They become licensed collectibles. Like if you're familiar with the game Destiny, and there's these a ghost, which is kind of like it interacts with your character. It's a small little item. The boxes fold into things and become part of it. So we created Optimus Prime one time for a theme that had Transformers items in it. And after you finish folding it all together, because the boxes are all scored, you look at the bottom of Optimus Prime you made, and it says copyright Hasbro, blah, blah, blah. These are all licensed things that we make, even down to fun stuff you can do with the boxes that it comes in. So it's everything. There's an ARG that we run. It's like this little hidden thing. There's a lot of elements to it, and we're constantly working with partners who can help take that community and that engagement that we have and really take it to the next level. So we've done like mobile apps and online kind of interactive things as well. So to your point, yes, it is much more than a subscription box company, and Loot Crate, the brand, is something that is just about fans and community and engaging with them and that relationship that we have where it's always a win-win-win between the IP and brand, the customers, which are our looters, and ourselves as a company.
Have you come across a fan that has a Loot Crate tattoo?
There is a fan that has a Loot Crate tattoo.
The old logo or the new one?
Old logo. Old logo. He's got
an apology letter when you change branding on it?
I told him I would pay to have so it was crazy. So it's not only the crate, okay? And he's here in California. He's actually coming to the office on Monday, and we're going to film with him because him and his partner are they're like personalities. They run something called Cut and Play, which is a video game themed barbershop where you can play video games while getting your hair cut. And it's a really cool place.
They meant to Cut and Play,
yeah. Game
and barbershop.
And I just was enamored with their story and everything. And they're in Fontana. And they try.
Never mind. Scratch that.
Fontana, yeah. But they come out, and he just came up to our booth that was outside of E3 because we didn't have a booth in E3 at the time, and was just like, "How's it going? Blah, blah. I've seen you on YouTube. Like, you're the man." Blah, blah. I'm like, "Yeah, how's it going?" He's like, "Check this out," and he shows me the tattoo, and it's a big tattoo. It's he goes like this to his bicep. And it's a full, I would say like 3" by 3" like Loot Crate. But then what really blew me away is he didn't show me the other arm, and he just didn't have the logo. He had Loot Anime, which is our anime subscription, Loot Crate DX, which is our premium offering, And then Luke Gaming also tattooed on his body in like something this long. And that is the extreme that we have seen, but every level in between. We've seen kids who have asked their parents for a Loot Crate themed cake. You know, people have showed us photos where it's like a kid is blowing out candles and it's a black box with the word Loot Crate on the top of it. And you know, people hang our boxes on the walls, or they collect their pins, and you know, we have these collectible enamel pins, and people will come up at shows and be like, I've been a subscriber with you for 4.5 years, and I'm like, come here, are you a hugger? Like, they're like, kind of. I'm like, I want to give you a hug. Like, you know, there's, you know, they are the people who helped us build this business, and it's like, you know, they're gold, you know, and finding ways to continue to excite and impress them and get them and keep them happy is what my primary role as Chief Experience Officer is, which is just to focus on those elements that are about, you know, creating joy and making sure that people feel like they have an interaction and an actual connection to the company that makes sense. Because we'll change things on the fly. We're the official subscription box for Major League Baseball. So it's called Sports Crate. And so if you're like, geek gaming, you know, but we understand fans, and we work with Major League Baseball and the Players Association, and we launched this new subscription, a totally different website called Sports Crate, and you can sign up and get a box every month during the season from 10 different teams in the MLB. And the items that are in there are licensed exclusive items, Topps trading cards, apparel, all these kind of things. And it's something that is a totally different type of fandom, but something that we're still, you know, totally focused on as well.
So I definitely want to talk about the challenges you have seen with that fan engagement from day one versus now, because obviously you're much larger scale. But also too, I want to talk about products, because you talk about products a lot, and obviously that's really a core to your business, the uniqueness of it all.
Well, everything's around that.
Yeah. So when you started, you know, Chris sourced, you know, Avengers Cologne, and that must have been spectacular. So you sourced a lot of things. At what point, whether it be month 1, month 2, month 3, did you start realizing, okay, now we need to start, because of resources, like you can't find things in volume. When did you start realizing you had to go a different route, and what is that route, and what are the products acquisition now, and what is that?
Sure. So to start from the beginning, it was a easily to understand progression. It came from finding things that were already out there that we can get enough of to fulfill the items that need to be in the crate. Then it went to, are there companies out there that can produce something for us at that scale, but maybe weren't willing to do something special just for us? 2, is there something they can do that can be a variant? So if we have like a Wonder Woman item, can we take what was not initially, you know, sparkly gold, like lasso and tiara and bracelets, and do like, you know, like a really cool gold edition that's the Loot Crate edition? 2, is there something that you guys have always wanted to do but never did because you didn't feel it had a market fit, or wouldn't work on a store shelf or at a theme park or something? What is something you always wanted to do based off of your knowledge of fans? And let's do it because it's sold in. If we think it's awesome and we think our community is going to love it, we want 400,000 of them. Like, give them to us tomorrow. Like, it's that kind of thing. And then it went to us now designing and creating products from scratch that have never existed before. So taking all the knowledge that we've gained over the years of fandom and what people have told us, and having to design and create stuff now 6 months in advance. So like, I know what's in, we're probably going to be in like March 2018's core subscription based off of the tentpole kind of franchises that are going to be big then. And because we have to order, you know, that far in advance because of Chinese New Year and things of that nature. So we have a whole a whole operational logistics team of sourcing and procurement specialists and things of that nature. And we go to trade shows and see what's out there. But now the most exciting part is being able to design things completely with just the fan in mind. I mean, imagine a world where you as a fan, the item that you are taking out of this cardboard box after you pull it out of the mailbox and look at it, it's made for you and people like you, not made for what is going to sell to the most amount of people, what's going to look great at eye level at like a store, or what's going to be saved just for Comic-Con and jacked up the price, because serious collectors can get it. You look at it and you're like, this is a replica of something that means a lot to me. That's kind of the strength that we have now. And we have the faith of over 250 different licenses, from Nintendo and Bethesda to Disney and every studio. We're doing Pacific Rim 2, we're doing Westworld and Stranger Things and Goonies and RoboCop, but also Destiny and Borderlands and Overwatch. We're designing things from scratch. Obviously sending them for approval and designing them, but there's things that are just ideas that now it's there and it's in front of you. And so that's the power that I think we've gotten to now. And it's all backed up by a great engineering and team and research team, customer support that is second to none. And I'm a little biased because my wife runs our support department, but no, I'm not biased at all. It doesn't matter. She's amazing. She's that team, because of the way that they are so focused on the community and the customer, leads the rest of the organization really in kind of like helping people with their career path through that org and reviews and reporting and all that kind of stuff. So it's really powerful.
Well, it rings true. The fact that leads that, it rings true, just that customer-centric mindset that you have.
Which is easy to say, right?
Yeah.
The customer's always right. We're the customers first,
Yeah. It is easy to say and a whole lot harder to execute. And so on that idea of execution, when you have 200 subscribers, fan engagement is a little bit simpler,
It was just me.
It was just you, right? What challenges did you have in growing and continuing on with that engagement as your scale grew? And obviously I don't know if you went from 200 to 500 to 12,000, I don't know what that growth was, but what challenges do you have in that staying centered on the fan and staying engaged with them as you went to scale?
Sure. So from a financial perspective, we grew 66,000%. And then all of our social channels and everything and everything grew along with that. It was a matter of it wasn't like I'm the brand, like I'm the tone and I'm the voice, but the heart that I put into it and the original starting team of people who worked with me. The challenge was in hiring people and having them kind of understand how different and how new this is, and how that personal engagement is really interesting and important. I mean, if you go to the Loot Crate Facebook page today, you'll see that almost every single thing that's a question is answered and commented on with a name. It's Allison, Amanda, these are real people. And because the community team is something that I run in addition to the production team, I built an organization with some really awesome people where they all are just culture experts and specialists and fans themselves of that. The woman who runs Loot Gaming as the senior community manager is a former professional, video game award winner, and is been in the space for the time, and is incredibly passionate about where gaming is going and what it's all about. We didn't hire a community manager and say, well, your focus is game. You like games, right? Oh, here's your focus, games. It was a very measured and thoughtful process. And I think people will be kind of surprised too that the community team is comprised of less than a dozen people for a company that has almost 300. And a lot of that is because we've given them the back-end systems and tools and best policies and procedures, and frankly, it's easy to do your job when you love it, and it's easy to get a lot of passion and output from somebody who is just waking up every morning and being like, I get to engage with the looters that are in my particular realm of influence. And so, it was tough to stay current and timely, but also to just kind of scale that up and make a determination of what we're going to do. Because after we did that giant growth and we had all those resources and everything, where to invest and how to invest was never a debate, but it was something that we did have to be thoughtful and careful about how we did, because obviously we had to invest in the business systems to run everything as well.
Resources. So you mentioned you and Chris bootstrapped this for the first 3 years, 66,000% growth, no investment capital, just bootstrap and getting to market with your subscribers, right? That's how it grew. In 2016, you guys had your first Series A.
Yes.
Well, your Series A.
Yes.
That's the first one. Your
Yeah.
Series A. Having gone as far as you went with tremendous success, what was that decision like? Because now you have to give a piece of the pie away. Right? It's been yours and Chris's and whatever the partners get involved, but it's been your pie. Now you got to start slicing it apart. What was that decision and what was that conversation like internally? Just, do we want to do this? Do we not want to do this? And why do we do it? And what do we do with it?
And that speaks to Chris's expertise. You know, while this is definitely the largest organization that he's been the CEO of, and this is obviously the largest organization I've been of an executive leader of, it really speaks a lot to him that he saw the right timing and the right moment that this would happen, and the discussion internally was about it being incredibly strategic. So the investors were like Downey Ventures, which is Robert Downey Jr.'s investment fund, at that point had only invested in something called Masterclass, which is a great online thing. It was Time Incorporated, you know, a company that knows subscriptions, you know, Time Inc., you know, but also they're also Time Inc. So there's a lot more they do than just you know, what some people think of there. I mean, it's a lot. Sterling VC, which is I believe it's it may have changed, but it's a family that partially owns the New York Mets. You know, so there was some thought about us going into sports. And then Upfront Ventures and some others who were LA VCs and everything. But again, the point of that tangent of naming them was more to just say this was definitely a strategic opportunity and something that we did to foster growth. Because as much as it's an incredibly complex business, because the forecasting, I walked by a board, I showed it to you I think at one point, right? The board that just had these algorithms on it, and I was just like, I don't know what squiggly line equals C over D. All I know is that the team that is working on that is incredibly sharp, because not only is it retention and churn modeling and everything, it's also like forecasting. You know, how do we know that if we have, let's just say 300,000 of our core subscribers, how do we know if in November we should order 305,000 or 295,000, because there's cannibalization of another thing in our ecosystem and everything. So it's very tough. And so part of the raise was to have a little more buffer and a little bit more comfort in being able to take some risks when it came to should we roll out new subscriptions or not, and things of that nature. And to invest in making sure that the environment that our company's in, I mean, you've seen our offices, they're not fancy offices, but you can definitely see the care that's in there, and people are really happy, you know. So investing in that was important as well, and we wanted to make sure that we had what we needed in order to get through some of the challenges that we'd come across.
So I think a lot of entrepreneurs have this mindset that, well, or they read stories, well, if I would have just had this type of investment money, or if somehow money's attached to where we say, if I would have had this raise, I could also be there. This money will solve all my problems. Did that Series A solve everything you were hoping it would solve?
No, it created a bunch more problems. You know, it solved some problems, but it also solved some complex but easy to wrap your head around problems, and it created some like crazy challenges that would happen. You know, and it's more than just like how are we going to spend the money. It's like, you know, there is such a thing as you know, too much growth, you know, and not being able to wrap your head around all the complexities that come along with that. You know, there's a difference between, these are obvious statements, but a 20-person organization and a 200-person organization. Interpersonal career paths and making sure that you're invested in the development of the career of each individual person you hire. And then what do Chris and I know as him in his early 30s and me in my late 30s about how to develop an operations and logistics platform that gets, you know, ships 50,000 crates a day out of a facility, you know, in Pennsylvania. Like, we had to learn as we went. And so there were some painful and hard challenges that came out of that. You know, the money didn't solve all the problems. It allowed us to do more interesting and complex things that made slightly bigger problems. But we are incredibly thankful for the investors and their you know, their interest in what they've done, and every day we know that we need to serve them just as much as every looter, because if we do, it's a win for everybody. So,
did the accountability to an investment group that add any change in dynamics in executive leadership, or? So I think that's one of the things that we don't think about a lot when we're not in that place of equity investment as far as accountability.
Sure.
Did that add any any stresses or changing dynamic for us?
It did. I mean, these days, we have to prepare for the board meetings, like how we're positioning things. We have a whole other group of really, really talented and smart people that we have to position and present to. And there's different metrics that we had to look at, that we were not previously really focused on. That meant a lot to these people who had much more experience than we did. Some of our team that we talk to on a regular basis are, again, Time Inc. And there's also some really sharp people from like Hope Look and Nordstrom, and people who have run giant companies and have amazing success in e-commerce. And we're learning a lot, but it also changes the dynamic a little bit. I don't think we go in every day like, how do we service our? It's not like this big slice for me, at least not for me personally, as not being the CEO. I mean, I know Chris, that's a burden that he excels in and he thinks about more than I do. For me, it's more of, are the things that I have influence over and being a servant leader to a really great organization of people that I work on a regular basis. Am I doing everything possible to service the need of the looters so that this company will intrinsically just become more successful as we create better experiences and adjust the service to their needs? In the end of the day, that's going to serve the investors, and that's the best I can do, is by growing the business in a way that is not solely tied to how much money did we spend in order to get the word out there, but are we doing the right things to turn our looters into advocates and evangelists of the brand, because they love it so much. That's what actually gets the word out there. And thankfully, with there's a ton of stuff that is incredibly complex about being a company that ships physical product. I had never had any experience with that as a consultant or as anything that I'd done in the past. But there is a delight in it as well, because you get to see the unboxing videos or the Instagram photos. You're standing in line at the airport going through security, and I'm like, that guy's, and I'm like, hey, Loot Crate, nice shirt. And he's like, oh yeah, hey man, you with Loot Crate too? I'm like, yeah, I work there. It's a great place. So seeing, I only use the number just as a sense of scale, but because we do ship 300,000 t-shirts out a month, that's 300,000 people out there to bump into, and because they're all people who go to everything is unique. I can spot somebody in a second. I'm like, that was July 2018, Power Rangers, the theme was this, all that kind of thing, and be able to strike up a conversation. So there's complexities with having physical product, but there's a genuine delight of being able to see those connections being made. And we hear about it all the time. We create content around it, around our looters, people who have met and become married, or people who have bonded with their with family members who maybe they don't have the same kind of political view or ideology, but every month they gather around and as a family unbox a Loot Crate. Everybody decides what each person is going to get, and that brings them together. So at the end of the day, it's stuff, right? It's not, we're not things like, we're not gas, we're not things you need in order to live in life. This is stuff that is extra, but to our customers and to our looter community, it is something that's really important to them, and we value that trust. And it does create great stories. It creates, and it inspires us. When things get rough, as much as the scale of hate and frustration that always happens, there's always going to be people who are going to be critical of your business. And you talk about scale. There was, when it was like, oh, just a few people were kind of unhappy this month, and then all of a sudden being like, there's hundreds of people who are just, I don't really like what you guys sent this month. What is this all about? And then I was like, yeah, hundreds of people out of hundreds of thousands. It was hard for us to not look at every single message and give it, keep it in perspective. But we look at the good stories. The brother who does unboxings over Skype with his brother who's deployed, and they both get a subscription, and they both wait until they can unbox it together and avoid spoilers online and everything, just so them as brothers, even with the world away, can see each other's reaction as they see what the shirt is or what the collectible is and stuff like that. And
are you trying to make me cry and I go everything military into it?
Oh man.
So I just happened to glance at the watch, and we're running out of time. There's a couple things I want to cover before. I want to get some.
I'll be speedy. If there's some things that you really want to get to, I will keep it succinct.
No. I have so much stuff I want to cover. I feel like there'd be a 2.0 somewhere maybe next year. So just to put on your calendar. So a couple things. How has your leadership changed from 5 years ago to now?
We have a lot of really experienced people that we brought in that come from companies to where they were the person who was focused on, sure, the technology aspect, but the experiential part of the technology. Or they were creating products at a toy company, but they were also running this like side project where they were working with creators and allowing them to use the IP in interesting ways in order to create, engagement with their fans. And so we just have a great group of people there that are just way more experienced than Chris and I as founders. And we've taught them some things, and they've taught us things. And the reason they're with Loot Crate, and we're really proud of it, is they could be in a lot of places. These are people who have seen tremendous success, and now they're our chief technology officer, chief creative officer, VPs of UI, UX. They come from Amazon and Google and TrueCar and Mattel and like big companies. And they love it, and it's interesting to see because, imagine being the guy at Mattel that you have a concept for a toy, and it might take 3 years and PowerPoint presentations and everything. At the end of the day, someone just decides, nah, that's not going to work. One guy in an organization maybe is the guy who kills what you've been staying up at night sketching and drawing and everything. Now we have an organization where we have people who are like, this is this concept, I've got this idea, and we're like, all right, let's run it through our values of the company. Is it something that we believe fans will want? Does the data back it up and stuff like that? And if it's something that's great, it's like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And so that executive team feels empowered to be able to do those kind of things. But to be fair, 5 years in, and the first 3 years were just very scrappy. No seats, no HR organization, no culture team and stuff like that. So we're really still learning, and we're really still kind of figuring out how to navigate things like executive meetings and senior leadership.
A lot of infrastructure stuff that before it was just like go, ship.
Oh yeah.
Now it's like, okay, now we got to put some skeleton to this.
And that's part of the challenge of being this size. Is like, if I have an idea in the middle of the night, I'm like playing Destiny 2, and I'm like, wait on. And I'm like, I think I have a way that we can potentially increase our referral traffic. Like, here's something that we can incentivize, and here's the perfect segment in my mind, in my gut, that I feel we should target and make this specific offer to, and I think it's going to have a definite business impact. I used to be able to just be like, I'm just going to start working on the email right now, and I'm going to write the copy myself, and I'm going to decide that I'm approving what the referral is and everything. And now, now it's like I have to be respectful of the men and women of the organization, who it's like, I can't just make unilateral decisions like that, and I shouldn't. I should be helping to collaborate with ideas, but I need to know that we've surrounded ourselves with people who are more experienced than we are, and together as a company, we really are able to affect a lot of change. So it slows things down a little bit, but the end result is always much more engaging and much more amazing than I could have thought.
So for the sake of time, I'm probably going to tweet you a bunch of questions tomorrow, so make sure you're following at Startup Grind SCV, because I have so many questions.
One of the things I did want to say is that you guys have such a new Twitter account.
Super new.
There's 50 followers.
Yes.
There's more than 50 people in this room right now, and I doubt they're the 50 followers that are there.
They're not.
So if it's one more follow, if you are on Twitter and you like this event, you felt it was good and everything else like that, I encourage you to follow them, because I think what you guys are doing is really great, and I really like it.
Love it. Thank you. So I appreciate that. So we have time for a couple questions. Does anybody have a question for Matthew? We'll get a mic out to you. In fact, I'll get it out to you, assuming we don't have feedback issues.
And I just want to say real quick that I'm sorry that I couldn't go into any specific detail around these things. But if you didn't have a chance to ask a question, reach out to me, tweet me, send me a LinkedIn or something like that. I'd be happy if there's something specific you have that you want to go deeper on.
I almost feel like we look alike in a way.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure and an honor.
Yeah. Very nice.
My name is Kyle Duffy. I own Optimus Computing, a software development company here in Santa Clarita. First, thank you so much for coming out.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah. You're welcome. It brings a lot of inspiration to me in what we're trying to do. So the question I have for you is, if you could go back and do it all again, what would you do differently?
I would encourage Chris and I to think about hiring somebody that has operational logistics, kind of like real product and warehouse and sourcing knowledge much earlier on. Even if they were just like us, kind of maybe new to the world of startups, but just kind of were in that space. They were a buyer somewhere or something like that, because we had no idea what OSHA was. We didn't know, like, where do you...
Life was easier that way.
Yeah. Where do you buy a forklift? And do you just buy a forklift? Because at some point, we're placing POs and stuff has to be delivered to the office. And, Chris would be so busy and everything, he forgot to, like, get a truck that has a lift gate. And so I have to stop tweeting, everybody stops everything they're doing just to offload stuff off the back of his truck. Had we brought somebody in that was like more of that element, and honestly something, because I had never been part of an organization where that element of it was really important, I think we would have been a lot smarter to bring in, if Chris was handling a lot of the CEO, executive, but also purchasing and all the other crazy stuff that he did, and I was handling a lot of the community and everything, having somebody that had much more product experience on their side, who really understood everything from packaging and warehouse and logistics and kind of how to work and negotiate terms and all these things that I never really thought about, I think would have been beneficial early on.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anybody else have a question? Let me get up to the front real quick here.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Birch. I write for Nintendo Wire, the Nintendo fan side. Thank you. You helped me out one Christmas with getting a perfect gift for my brother. The ordering process was a little crazy because it was one of those special crates.
I'm not going to answer this. It's Chris. So sorry. Here he is, hanging out with us.
My question is competition, because now Funko has all their crates.
Mm-hmm.
They have like their Disney crate.
Sure.
Disney has their own crates. You have now everyone trying to compete for that same slice of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about, how much of like that hustle kind of like lights a fire, and does it make you go, we need to go talk to all of our companies that we have connections with and see, what can we do more to help them out and our fans?
Sure. Well, Funko is a great organization, somebody that we worked with early on because, you guys all have a Funko Pop. We worked early on because they had a tremendously large amount of licenses, everything from Marvel and DC to 22 Jump Street and the Golden Girls. They service fandom everywhere with their very popular format of the Funko Pop. And so early on, we were one of the largest purchasers of them because, sure, they were doing a lot of retail and everything, but we were like, we need 50,000 and they're sold, it's done. And so we had a really great relationship with them, and it was surprising that they would not work with us to power their individual subscriptions. But at the end of the day, it's a toy manufacturer who is creating subscription boxes that only include things that they manufacture. And they make great stuff, but if you're not into that style or that particular company and what they create, we're able to work with every single company that has a license. So for example, and we're also able to create our own items. So that's kind of our differentiation. And at the end of the day, Funko is also focused on fandoms that are the top ones. We go pretty deep into other things. So I'm quoted in a Fast Company article as, I think somebody said that when Matthew was asked about competition, he almost seemed like upset by not upset by the question, like blew it off or something like that. It was a competition. I don't remember saying that in the interview. I think I just really was trying to walk the line between being incredibly proud of what our looters have brought us to be able to do and what the service is, with also not trying to sound to have too much ego about we're way better. We honestly do see ourselves as more than just a company that does a subscription box because of the engagement that we do and the social interaction, the original content that we create, the original products that we create, the technology that we have behind everything. And we actually mentor and help a lot of other companies that are in that space that aren't direct, could be seen as a competitor. But even the company that had been seen as one of our largest competitors because of their public image ended up with a fifth of the subscribers that we had when they finally kind of folded. And so it's a different business.
What does the next 5 years have for Loot Crate?
As we expand, the idea is to continue to to focus on where and how fans are interacting. We think that continuing to do the physical products is something that's really interesting, but obviously we have people who value the Loot gaming brand, for example, and may be interested in indie games or digital goods and games with some of the partners that we currently work with, and never get anything shipped to them and have it just be a complete digital experience. We're expanding our sports relationships, so we'll be announcing another major sporting league that we will be powering the subscription boxes around. And I think it's really about us really leaning more into the content and being a destination that people can come to learn more about the things that they are fans of. You go to our website right now, it's very much sign up, here's some interesting things, but there's not really an experience when you're logged in. We have so much great data that our community gives us back as subscribers in the service that we are creating and will be launching a place where you want to go to us, not for editorial or not for breaking news, but just to feel part of a community that is on non-third-party social channels and kind of just bring it internally. So the stuff that we do on Twitter and Facebook and everything is amazing and great, but we're still beholden to those platforms. We're going to bring more of that internally and launch more of that so that you wake up in the morning and you open the app to do more than just sign up or check on the tracking of your package. You're doing it because you want to say good morning to the other looters that are in a chat room of people watching Westworld, and saying hello to them.
I can't wait to download Lootbook.
Lootbook?
So as we wrap up, because we do have to wrap up, I just look at the time again. I feel like we can go on forever. Just so much great stuff you shared with us, and I greatly appreciate it. But as we wrap up, for the entrepreneurs here, what is one thing that you just want to leave them with as we close this segment right now?
Just focus on what the experience of your business is. The product can be the experience, but when you sit down, what are you doing to be additive to that customer's life? What are you fulfilling? And are you truly creating a business and a service offering for them or for yourself? Really kind of change that mindset. Obviously businesses need to make money. We need to grow and fund and everything, but the end should always be about being able to be better so that you can be better for your customers. And every brand, no matter what it is that you're selling or what service you have, there is a story there. There's a story that you can share, and the more that you are open and authentic about who you are and why you're doing it, and letting people in about it and learn about this is more than just a company that's charging my credit card every month. This is something that I actually know more about. You can then start telling their stories and it'll become easy because it aligns so much with what it is you're doing. So the 4 elements of our business values, one of them is the typical, buy fans, for fans, or we're fans too. You really need to express that and make it real.
That's awesome. Let's give it up for Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you.